दिशा में है तू ही दिखे, किस्सा अकीदत का कैसे लिखे, दीदार से तेरे मिलता सुकून, आनंद ही आनंद है क्या मैं कहूँ, नूर का साया रखना सदायों, नूर का साया रखना सदायों, होगी हम पर तेरी इनायत, अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मदिन वाले मुहम्मद, अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मदिन वाले मुहम्मद. Listen to the angels calling your name, wanting for the mercy of your flame, this light you've bestowed upon us today. All of the darkness is now gone away. You are the Noor, son of Ali. You are the Noor, son of Ali. You are the progeny of Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wale Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wale Muhammad. ओ मारा मौला तू ही जे सलाम, शाही जमान अमारो इमाम, लइए छे तारो जनाम, कर जो करमो शाही सलाम. ओ मारा मौला तारा थी सलाम, ओ मारा मौला तारा थी सलाम, तारा थी हमारो जीवन सलामत. अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मदिन वाले मुहम्मद. अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मदिन वाले मुहम्मद. अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मदिन वाले मुहम्मद. अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मदिन वाले मुहम्मद.
We begin our reflection with a Hadith Qudsi, sayings of Allah, reported by the Prophet, that refers to Surat al-Fatiha. This surah is referred to as the Fatihat al-Kitab, the opening of the book, and it is also the opening of the first part of our dua. Allah says, as reported by the Prophet, I have divided the prayers into two halves between me and my servant will receive what he asks. When the servant says, Praise be to Allah, the Lord of the universe, Allah the Most High says, My servant has praised me. And when he says, The most compassionate, the merciful, Allah the Most High says, My servant has lauded me. And when he says, Master of the Day of Judgment, he remarks, My servant has entrusted his affairs to me. And when he says, You do we worship, and of you do we ask help, he says, This is between me and my servant will receive what he asks for. Then, when he, the worshipper, says, Guide us to the straight path, the path of those to whom you have been gracious, not of those who have incurred your displeasure, nor of those who have gone astray. He, Allah says, This is for my servant, and my servant will receive what he asks for. As we reflect on this surah, what significance can it hold for each one of us? Perhaps one way to view Surah Al-Fatiha is as an intimate conversation with our Creator. The surah provides an opportunity for us to open our hearts to the Divine, in which the Divine responds and surrounds us with His unconditional love. What if we were to view prayer not simply as a recitation, but as a dialogue? And not just any dialogue, but a dialogue where He is within hearing distance at all times. In Surah Qaf, verse 16, Allah says, We did indeed create man, and we know what his soul whispers to him. And we are nearer to him than his jugular vein. Knowing that He is that close to us, would we not want to share our innermost thoughts with Him, in the hopes that when we share the joys in life, we are expressing our gratitude and appreciation for His blessings in our life? And when we share our sorrows and struggles, we are asking Him for strength to face those struggles. Likewise, when we are praying for our community, when we are praying for our families or for the Jamat, we are petitioning for the well-being of all of those that we love and care about. And that too is a moment of connection, an intimate dialogue with the Divine. When we have moments in our life where we think, Please God, just let me get through this next deadline, this next exam, this next interview. Is that not a moment of prayer? A prayer of petition? When we think, what a beautiful sunset with a rainbow of colors thrown into the clouds from the rays of the setting sun, is that not a prayer of glorification and praise? And then when we think, what a wonderful day. All my friends and family are together in one spot celebrating my birthday. Is that too not a prayer of shukrana, of gratitude? Just like no dialogue or conversation is ever the same, in the recitation of our dua, the intimate conversation we share with our Creator is influenced by where we are at that moment in time. And whatever that moment may feel like, we have an opportunity to pour the gratitude from our hearts, the sorrows of our hearts, and the worries of our hearts to He who is Al-Rahman, the most merciful. As we reflect on this opportunity for an intimate dialogue, some of us may be feeling unsettled or uncomfortable as we are all grappling between the current circumstances that surround us, and perhaps are even wondering, what is the purpose of prayer under such circumstances? How do we reflect on the love of the divine around us when many of us, or our brothers and sisters, our friends, and humanity at large are struggling? One thing that we can perhaps acknowledge is that when we look at the current circumstances around us, there are things which we can control, and there are other things which we cannot control. In every prayer, we have an opportunity for submission. We can submit to that which we cannot control, submit to accepting that which we cannot change, and submit to realign with those words, thoughts, and actions that give us the strength to face the circumstances that come our way. In his memoirs, Imam Sultan Muhammad Shah alayhi salam reminds us, prayer is a daily necessity, a direct communication of the spark with the universal flame. Prayer is a medium through which our souls can be uplifted. Prayers play an important role in allowing us to achieve our purpose in life. Prayer is not a means to disengage from the world, but rather to accept our challenges and engage even more fully and actively with the world around us. Prayer gives us the strength to overcome challenges and become a better version of ourselves. To be able to put things in perspective is perhaps one of the most meaningful gifts we can be blessed with. While prayer can be an ask or a desire, or perhaps even in the form of a complaint to the beloved, in its highest form, prayer is simply the opportunity to share an intimate conversation with our Creator, to be able to lose ourselves in Allah's nur, and yet to find our true selves through this divine connection. And it is in this intimate dialogue that perhaps our souls find upliftment to face the circumstances that surround us. Perhaps then, we don't pray to exist, we exist to pray. Possibly, we are praying every moment of our day, and our conversations with the divine is continuing in every breath, in every thought, in every word, in every moment. And within these very prayers are the answers that we seek. It is only for us to be able to see or hear Him. Do we see Him? Do we feel Him? For He was there yesterday, He is here today, and He will be there tomorrow. Maulana Rumi shares with us the following words of wisdom. For 60 years I have been forgetful every minute, but not for a second has this flowing toward me stopped or slowed. I deserve nothing. Today, I recognize that I am the guest the mystics talk about. I play this living music for my host. Everything today is for the host. Rumi reminds us that we are guests on the great good earth, And our every breath should be one of gratitude to the host. If the only prayers we say in our lifetime is thank you, that would suffice.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A man died and saw God coming closer to him with a suitcase in his hand. God says to the man, "It is time to go." The man says, "So soon? I had a lot of plans." God continues, "I'm sorry, it's time to go." "What do you have in that suitcase?" the man asks. God replies, "Your belongings." "My belongings? You mean my things? My clothes? My money?" God replies, "No, those were never yours. They belong to the world." "Is it my memories?" "No, they belong to time." "Is it my talent?" "No, they belong to circumstance." "Is it my family and friends?" "No, they belong to the path you traveled," God says. "Is it my wife and children?" "No, they belong to your heart." "It must be my body." "No, that belongs to earth." "It must be my soul." "No, your soul is part of me and belongs to me." God gives man the suitcase to open. He opens the suitcase and inside he finds it empty. Man asks God, "I never owned anything?" "You never owned anything," God replies. "Then what was mine?" God replies, "Your purpose. That was yours. Nothing else but your purpose." What then is my purpose? Who am I? Who is my creator? What is my relationship with him? And how do I find a personal connection with my creator? Perhaps one answer is by engaging with the divine through prayer. In a hadith, the Prophet states, quote, "Each and everything has a face or purpose, and the face of religion is prayer," unquote. Perhaps we can consider that prayer is a fundamental means by which to realize the purpose of human life. In addition to prayers in congregation, the Imam of the time recognizes a variety of prayers, tasbihs, personalized forms of ibadat, qasidas, ginans, by which individuals can also submit to the divine. And in his most recent Tariq al-Mubarak, he states, quote, "I wish my Jamat to keep in mind the importance I attach to our historic tradition of personal private prayer," unquote. So when we think of personal private prayer, perhaps it's prayer that is not in congregation. So then prayer is not only limited to a specific attitude or a specific mindset or a specific way of doing things. It's not tied to a certain set of rituals only, but perhaps also a personal search, a search for meaning, truth, beauty, and goodness. It can take a multiplicity of forms. These forms can be said both in congregation and in Jamat khanas or privately as individuals. Ay dil biyo barkhandame ya shakarim maula madad har mufliso rohamdame ya shakarim maula madad. Even in prayer, we can seek the strength and guidance of the Imam of the time in our lives to become one with our Creator. It is through the supplications that we can find strength, we can find comfort, and we can find peace. Then sometimes we might think to ourselves that what is the use of prayer? Maybe God isn't even listening. Why is it that we have doubt that prayers are not even heard? You see, sometimes in the silence of our prayers, we wonder, is Allah listening to our calling? Rumi writes, "All night a man called Allah until his lips were sore. Then a voice of darkness said, 'How come you have been calling the whole night and never once heard Allah say, "Here I am"? You called out so earnestly, and in reply, what? I tell you, nothing.' the man suddenly felt empty, abandoned, and depressed, and he threw himself into deep slumber. In a dream, he met Prophet Ibrahim, who asked, "Why are you regretting praising Allah?" The man replied, "I called and called, but Allah never replied, 'Here I am.'" And Prophet Ibrahim explains, "Allah has said, 'You calling my name is my reply. You longing for me is my message to you.' All of your attempts to reach me, in reality, are my attempts to reach you. Your fear and love are nooses to catch me." You see, in the silence surrounding every call of Allah waits 1,000 replies of "Here I am." It all depends on how we submit to the divine, with our intentions, our hearts, our thoughts. Who are we seeking for, ourselves or others? What is the role of ego in prayer? A man asked a pious devotee, "What have you gained regularly by praying to God?" The devotee replied, "I do not completely understand what I've gained, but I will tell you what I've lost. I've lost anger, stress, greed, depression, insecurity, fear, and most significant, my ego." The moment we think we know it all, ego is present. The moment we think we are humble, ego is present. The moment we think success is due to us, ego is present. So what should we do? We should consciously remove the ego. We would like the ego to go. We must remember, ego. When we make room, then the divine can enter. You see, sometimes the answer to our prayers is not in gaining, but losing, which is the ultimate gain. Hazrat Ali alayhi salam has said, "I derive my sustenance from the death of my ego. The heart is liberated with the death of the ego," unquote. So in this relationship, in this connection, how can we communicate with the divine? For even in this moment, he is listening. If you were to write a letter to God, which name should I write it to? For every name is yours. With which pen do I write you with? For you are the ink of knowledge. Which words do I use? For you are all-knowing. Which paper do I write you on? For you are the creator of every fiber. At which location shall I send my letter? But I don't need to send my letter anywhere, for you reside in my heart. But of course, if I write a letter from my heart, then there are your words, because my soul comes from you. Remembering you is remembering me. This is the beauty of personal private prayer. Our historic tradition is guided by the Imam of the time as he guides his murid towards spiritual enlightenment. Let us remind ourselves of the purpose of our existence and come closer to knowing our Creator and His creation through personal private prayer. For the Quran identifies ibadat as the sole reason for the creation of human beings. Allah says, "And I created the jinn and humankind only that they might worship me," unquote. Remember, we each have two lives. The second one begins when we realize we only have one. And we have the Imam of the time to guide us towards becoming one with our Creator. In Ali Qasim's Qasida, Ya Imami, he supplicates, O my Imam, you are my strength and my yearning. You are my light in my heart, and I am so deep in your love. Everyone who affirms loyalty to the Imam will be rewarded the highest attainment in peace, and will ascend in love to the highest position. You have been designated by the prophets like your ancestors. I pledge my full love, loyalty, and prayers to you, my Imam. You are the most powerful, the most generous. I pledge all my love and prayers to you until the last moment of my life. Let us supplicate together and ask that we remain with Maulana Hazrat Imam under his imamat forevermore. Sami mune rakhajo tamari sate ne sate sate ne sate mune hamesha rakhajo पासे ने पासे मुने हमेशा राखजो हमेशा राखजो हमेशा राखजो.
The Valley of Love. What a fearful place this was. As the birds entered the Valley of Love, they saw a sea of small fires below them. Thick, black smoke spiraled upwards from many fires. Every now and then, mighty flames leaped towards the sky. Through the smoke, the birds saw two men walking on the ground. One was telling the other a story. The birds flew down to listen. One day, a rich merchant from Persia saw a beautiful straw seller. He fell madly in love with the young woman. He sold everything he had so that he could buy straw from her. Even when he was given food, he sold it to buy more straw. The first traveler asked the second to explain the meaning of the story. "If you truly love someone," his friend replied, "you will sell 100 worlds to be with that person." When the birds heard this tale, they knew they had to give up everything for the love of the Simurgh. Some of the birds found it difficult to love the Simurgh in the hot valley. Instead, they began to gaze at the magical fires around them. In the fires, they saw many things which attracted them. Some burned their wings as they flew too close to the flames. Others were not so lucky. But there were a few birds who began to love the Simurgh, despite the fires around them. At first, their love was like a tiny flame that flickered in their hearts. After many years, it grew into a blazing fire. The birds were ready for the next valley.
The Valley of Understanding. This was a valley without beginning or end, where it was dark all the time. The birds followed Hoopy closely, not wishing to lose their way. Hoopy seemed to see everything clearly, as though there were a bright light before her. After a long time, the birds arrived at a fortress where a soldier stood on guard. He was always awake and would not sleep, even for an hour. "Why don't you ever sleep?" the birds asked him. "I am searching for the knowledge which shows us the inner meaning of things," said the soldier. Duck looked confused. "If you stay awake and search, my gentle duck, you too will find this knowledge," explained Hoopy. The birds agreed to keep awake in the dark, but some of them fell asleep almost immediately. They were all very tired. In the still of the night, those who remained awake thought about the Samurg. They spent many years trying to understand who the Samurg was. These birds found the darkness slowly disappearing around them. Their hearts were filled with joy as they saw dawn breaking through the black sky. The dawn brought with it a very special light. It was a light which revealed many secrets to them. Duck, who had kept watch near an almond tree, gasped in amazement. "Look," she said, holding up an almond shell. "I can see right through the shell to the almond inside. Isn't it wonderful?" The others too were dazzled. In each atom, they saw the whole universe. The birds found that they could now cross this valley on their own.
The Valley of Separation. Upon entering the new valley, the birds found themselves separated from one another and all alone. An icy wind blew through their feathers into their very souls. The wind blew so violently it destroyed everything in its path. Here, the 7 oceans were no more than a pool, and the 7 planets a mere spark. Here, an ant was stronger than 100 elephants. The birds flew on and on, feeling lonely and frightened. They searched hard within themselves for the courage to keep on flying. They often got lost, but they did not give up. They flew on, thinking only of the Samurg.
As the morning mist rose and hours turned to minutes, the assembled Jamat at Porshniev, on the outskirts of Khorog, sat with the patience of 1,000 years since Nasir Khusro first set foot in Badakhshan, awaiting their Imam in contemplative anticipation. here as in Ish Kashim a few days later, Maulana Hazrat Imam's Irshad was heard by members of the Jamat gathered together across a narrow stretch of river on the northern border of Afghanistan.
My beloved spiritual children and my brothers and sisters in Islam, today is a day of special happiness for me, as this is not only my first visit to Al-Qadr, but it is also the first time in many centuries that the Imam of the time of the Ismaili Muslims has had the opportunity to see and to be in the presence of members of the Ismaili Jamat in Al-Qadr and amongst other brothers and sister Muslims. Let me repeat that this is a day of very special happiness. To all my spiritual children who are here today, and to all your families, wherever they may be, and some are outside Tajikistan, I give my most affectionate loving blessings. And to my brothers and sisters in Islam here and in those areas of Badakhshan, which I will not be visiting, be assured that my deep and heartfelt prayers are with you for your peace, your unity, and your happiness. I pray also for the eternal peace and rest of the souls of all the deceased members